Hey everybody, good morning. Happy Wednesday.
Good
Oh,
morning, peeps. How are you?
getting my notification that my own stream is live. So
Right.
before we jump into today, I have a question that I want to ask you. I'm going to poll you guys. Where should I move? So I'm about done with New York. And we've been looking down south a little bit, but every area has its pros and cons, and different tax burdens, different cultures, and convince me, where should I move or where should I not move? How about that? Because I would never talk somebody into moving to New York. There's a very small percentage of people that actually think about moving to New York, and it's usually for the city. And like, I'm sure Marina wants to come to dance.
Yes, yes. Marina wants to move to New York for the love of dance.
Hmm.
She wants to live in Manhattan because it makes sense, like if she's on Broadway.
Yeah.
But then again, all that is based on, what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, I just know that New York is the second most moved out of state in the nation. Yeah, and that number just keeps increasing. Move
Yep.
to Arizona, Sharon says. All right.
Why?
So
Why, Sharon?
I've been to Arizona and it's really beautiful. And everybody keeps saying it's a dry heat down there, but so is the oven on Thanksgiving. I guess you get used to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, every climate, even in Georgia, you get used to it. For us, our winter is roughly around, I don't know, maybe a month or two.
So here's the benefits of
You
Arizona.
could
You can
hike.
hike and you can hang out with me. Sold.
Hey,
All right.
absolutely,
All right, so now that the
absolutely.
stream has had a chance to get going here, let's say good morning. Today we're talking about the subject of creation, and no, this is not a debate about science versus religion. Um, this is about the creation of our students and the impacts that we have in their lives, in their development, in their thought processes, and believe it or not, in the actual physical bodies that they live in. So we're going to talk a little bit in terms of pies today, and we'll talk about some anecdotes of different ways that we've seen our students develop physically. Then we'll talk about intellectually, emotionally, and socially. But we also want to relate a little bit of the science of what we're doing to these anecdotes, because we can all point to a student or two and say, well, this student got better. We want to be able to say, this student got better because of us.
Yes.
Not so much to take the credit, but when we talk about being child development centers and child development experts, we want to be able to draw very clear lines from process to result. Not just, hey, we get kids better grades, but we get kids better grades because of this, and this. And there should be a measurable, repeatable, and science backed relationship to any two things that we say there.
So you said not to take the credit, but why not take the credit? When life is giving you lemons, why not make lemonade, right?
Yeah,
And
so
we're not
that's a good
taking.
clarification, because this is something we actually struggle with as martial artists. You
Yes,
have to
thank
be
you.
humble as a martial artist. And what happens is we're all worried about charging money, and we're all worried about putting our name on the thing, and we're all worried about talking about ourselves. That's not what humility means. What I mean by
So
not taking the credit is not like, well, I did this and I'm the only way and I'm the best way. Absolutely take the credit. Just remember that you're taking the credit about a student and a human being.
yeah, I mean, again, if we go back and realize how it all started, right? We're gonna go back and we're going to say that we're licensed by the Skillz worldwide, so we are getting the credit as people who took the information, studied the information, we cultivated it or cultivated the information in our studio to make sure that we are developing ourselves as child development centers. You know what I mean? It's those who um, take the credit for themselves and say, well, yeah, I did that. Well, no, you didn't. You know what I mean? And guys, please, as part of Skills Worldwide, or if you're not, if Skillz gave you any information, just think about that for a second. You know what I mean? Like, I put out this post last week about being on the fence. A lot of people are on the fence. I've talked to school owners and they're like this close to making the jump, but they don't want to make the jump. Why? Well, is it the learning? Is it understanding? Is it, I don't know, is it they're scared? You know? But there is a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about today that maybe helps them like understand how easy it is. But I think if they dig deep into the stages of development, if they dig deep on how to promote themselves and let the world know about what they're capable of doing, after that, it's an easy task.
Yeah, and guys, like Skillz is not the only way by any means. We all came up in a martial arts world without Skillz, and I know the impact martial arts has had in my life. It saved my life many times, both from physical attack, from from myself. It's had a major impact. But imagine if you can systemize that, and then also be able to duplicate it and figure out like why each thing happens. We can impact so many people very directly as I take you under my wing. But if there's 100 or 200, or some of our UK schools have like 400-600 students, there's no way you're taking all 600 students under your wing. But if you can systematize this and figure out what is the most efficient way to have these impacts, you're going to have a more poignant impact in each of those 600 lives than just the general effects of martial arts training. And that's our goal for today's conversation, is to help you discover what that means for you.
Cool. Yeah. We're going to be able to guide you guys into small little steps and help you see the things that we're seeing. And some of you who are, watching us right now, you've probably seen the vision already, but maybe we can break it down a little deeper for you guys. I know you and I talked to a lot of people during the conference at, St. Pete's, and I know personally the people that I've talked with, like the things that I showed them, the things that we implement in the studio and how we implement it and why we implement it, they were like, oh, I wish we did that. Well,
So
this is why this I know. This is why we do what we do, guys. This is why
one of
we
my
do what we do.
favorite quotes is from I think it's from Grumpy Old Men, and it's Burgess Meredith. And forgive my French, but he says, you can shit in one hand and wish in the other and see which fills up first. Sometimes when you say, oh, I wish we could, you just gotta. It's going to be maybe imperfect action, but you got to get to it. Speaking of getting to it, so we're going to talk about pies today. And for those of you that are new to the show, pies is how we categorize everything in Skillz. So we look at child development, and it falls into one of these 4 categories. So physical, intellectual, emotional, or social. Now, very often these overlap. So there's no, cut and dry division between the 4, but we tend to categorize things this way. So let's start off talking about some of the physical successes that we've had with our students. So John, can you think of, as you think of all your students, you've been speaking for a long time now, or let's not say long, for a respectable amount of time, because we're all young. Can you think of, if you think about like a physical success or a physical challenge that a student has overcome that really sticks out to you, could you think of a story to tell us about one of your students?
Yeah, absolutely. Roughly around 10 years ago, we met a young lady at a mall. We were doing a mall demonstration, and she came to us and wanting, like, just you can just tell in the way she talked, in the way she presented herself, she's wanting to do martial arts, but her parents were totally against it. And mom and dad were standing there, and mom was like literally crying in tears as we're standing there, persuading her not to. And thankfully, Jennifer was right there next to me, and the team was right there next to us. So we let the team handle it, and Jennifer and I handled the parent. And we're like, why is it that you don't want your daughter to do it? Well, I am going to make this story very, very short. The girl is autistic, and she's on the spectrum. Well, same difference, but she has Asperger's. So her brain functionality is like up to here, dude. Like she can read books, she can recite things. From an educational level, news level, she'll just regurgitate it and she knows it by heart. And of course, when she talks, you can understand that there is something there. You know what I mean? Physically, she couldn't pick up anything because, Asperger's has to deal with a lot of the muscle functions
Mhm.
and she can't do much. So I was like, okay, well, hey, I told mom, I said, what do you have to lose? There is no contact. She's not going to spar for at least the first, 9 to 12 months. Have her come in. She can do some of the things. You can come in the studio and watch. And if she ever gets hurt, just, let me know and we're done. Okay. But you cannot tell your child not to do something, especially where she's at in life and the ambition that she has. And you're telling her not to do it because of your fears, not her fears. Of course, Jennifer comes in, and as a person who has a master's degree in psychology, she went in and she made that mom feel very, very, very good about things. The girl ended up being a black belt. She got the first degree black belt. Of course, it took her 7 years. You know what I mean? A little bit longer than the average student. Um, and she ended up going to college to be a marine biologist. Now, this is what blows everybody's mind away. She can scuba dive with a 300-pound tank on her back. So if that in itself doesn't make you get goosebumps, I don't know what will.
So I love stories like that where, obviously there were some physical challenges, but it was
Oh,
also
yes.
mom and dad. So, this is why I said, like, it's never really cut and dry. It's never
No.
just physical. There's always like that emotional or that intellectual or that fear-based thing that goes along with it. So being able to solve both of those was probably pretty powerful. And in fact, I'll bet you once you solved the fear thing and she got into class probably
Oh,
helped her a lot with some of those, the dysfunctions.
yep.
And let me pop this up real quick. I think I got it uploaded here. This is a cartoon that I've seen about 4 people post in the past 2 days, and it's going to be hard to read on here, and I'll post it in the comments so you can see the big one. But essentially, what's happening in this comic is that a little boy is going into his library and choosing books. And he goes up to the librarian, and the librarian says, "Oh, that's a great book." And then he takes the book back to his teacher, and the teacher says, "Well, you can't read that book. It's above your grade level." And the kid comes back to the librarian and says, "Well, the teacher says that I shouldn't read this because it's above my grade level." So the librarian encourages him and says, "Well, try it anyway." And then the teacher comes up and says, "Librarian, why are you giving this book to the kid? It's above his grade level." And the librarian having the conversation that why would we put limits on kids based on our assessment when they want to try so much more, and you never know, what they're going to be capable of unless you let them try. So I loved this comic when I read it the other day, and I've seen it at like probably 4 people post it. So I'm going to post that in the comments. But that concept right there of why would we hold somebody back based on our fears for them? Now, like our assessment and objective measurement, maybe, because that becomes, all right, the safety of the child and whatever. On the other hand, there's also that strength switch of, all right, this just shows that these are good parents because they are concerned, right? So we also want to be careful not to judge the parents and say, well, you're holding them back. Yeah, I'm sure, knowing Jennifer, she didn't walk in there and say, well, you guys are idiots for trying this, trying to hold her back.
No, no. I mean, every parent's concern is a legitimate concern. You know what I mean? And it is a legitimate concern according to them, right? And if we're really good at reading people, if I approach you and I tell you, Michael, that is wrong, that's not the way you need to think, blah blah blah, you're gonna like set back a few steps, cross your arms, and you're like, who the are you, to tell me how to raise my child? That's never the approach we want to take. You know, the approach we need to take the um, connection approach. I mean, we need to connect with a parent to make sure that the parent is able to connect with you right away, and it allows you to persuade them in the right direction. And yes, I did say persuade them in the right direction. I didn't say guide them in the right direction, because they're not ready to be guided yet.
Yeah,
And that's the
persuasion
thing.
is often perceived as a bad word. Like,
No,
I have to
yes,
persuade them to join my. Well, yeah, you have to persuade them.
yep,
It's a positive word. It's your ethics that are going to be in
yes,
question. So if you are ethical, then it's a good thing. If you're not
yes,
ethical, then it's always going to be a bad thing.
yeah. Um, Kids, you want to guide them in the right direction, but yeah, you still want to persuade them. Adults, you want to persuade them so they can trust you, so they're able to take your guidance.
Yeah, and that's what it is.
And
Persuasion is like building that trust. Like, trust
yep.
me to take this step. So, my as I think about physical success, and I know some of you follow my schools page. If you saw the post that I did, I guess it was last night, and I did it on my personal profile as well.
Hmm.
That why is greater than how is greater than what, and the little boy
Yes.
in that picture. So, John, you talked about the child had a challenge, and it was the parent that, in one way, by trying to help, was holding them back.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not the parents. Sometimes it's us as the instructors. So in this little boy's case, he was born with one leg shorter than the other. He has a club foot. He's missing some toes. And the parents had heard that martial arts can be great for helping kids build confidence and strengthen themselves, all the things that probably John's student had success in. And they went to the local school, not us. They went to the other local school, and they walked in for the trial lesson, and the instructors took one look and said, "Why are you even here? That kid can never do martial arts like that. You're wasting my time. You're wasting his time. Go find a different activity." Like, flat out,
I'm
no
cringing.
empathy. Kid walked out in tears. Parent walked out in tears. They already had the appointment with us, so they came and visited us. And they came in apologizing. We're so sorry. We're probably wasting your time because we know he won't be able to do it because, well, because of what? Like, let
Wow.
the child see what the child can do. And he went on to score very highly on his evaluation, and we placed him immediately in class. And now he's been with us for years, even through surgeries to correct some of the the length issues with his leg. He goes through surgeries that are excruciatingly painful, and all through the surgery and the recovery, it's, when can I get back to class? Because he knows that in class, no matter what, he's able to succeed physically. He'll probably never be exactly the same as the other kids physically, but he performs the same as the other kids physically. So this was a case of us projecting, and when I say us, I mean instructors, projecting our beliefs about what a child should and should not be able to do onto that child. And this is important because very often, and we have these conversations in the skills group all the time. Hey guys, how come I'm having this challenge with teaching this? Or how come my kids can't do that? Or how come I can't get the kids to perform like this? Well, our first question is, well, what are your expectations? And the response, 99.999% of the time, is, well, my expectations are correct. I know that they're kids. My expectations are correct, but none of the kids can do it. That makes us the common denominator, first of all. And usually when we dig in, we find that it's a stage of development challenge. And it's our expectation because we could do it. Martial arts instructors are by definition the anomalies. Of course we can do it. We were the highest performers in our class. We were the competitors. We were the teacher's pets that you had to kick out of the school. The typical child is not. And now you have a child with a physical disability. How am I going to get this kid to do that, 12 o'clock sidekick?
Yeah.
It's our expectation of the physical ability.
And a lot of times too, it has to do with our lack of education, in terms of, like, how well educated are we to be in the position that we're in. Like, our forte is the martial art world. Our forte is the fact that we've trained in martial arts, for 10, 15, plus years to become the instructors that we are today. Unfortunately, nowadays, our parents or our community or society does not educate um, parents really, really well before having a baby, right? So, how many parents actually buy what to expect when you're expecting, and they actually read the book and follow through with it? You know what I mean? I know
And
with
like a lot of the books that are out there are dated
they
information.
are, yes, yes. They're so dated, and like right now, as we're preparing for the pediatric ninja specialist courses, um, I'm digging deep into the stages of development, to the point that I'm digging deep into what happens around the time of conception, what happens when they're beginning to um, uh, the oh man, what's the right word here? Um, while
Spirit.
the baby's in the womb, right? What can be done while the baby's in the womb that will help the baby become more um, you know, developed in their stages of development. What happens? What can mom do? What can dad do? How does working out, affect the child? How, there's just so much when it comes to the stages of development that us as parents can do to educate ourselves. So when that child is born, we're totally aware of what we need to do and how we need to do it. So we're not holding them back. So it's no longer just an emotional decision or a biased decision, it's an educated decision.
And it's a rabbit hole, right? Like
Hmm.
in the CPNS course, and real quick, Sharon says they buy the books, but they just don't read them. I have to be honest.
Yes.
I have about 80 books that I haven't read yet because I'm a bookworm, and I keep buying books and say, okay, I'm going to read this one next. And my list of things to get to is just so long. So I kind of get that. In researching the CPNS course, things that we think about, like, for tomorrow's lesson, we're going to look at some bonus hormones and neurotransmitters. Uh, and while a lot of them, we're going to look at how they interact and interplay in a teen class, they go all the way back to, like John said, conception and development in the womb. So, we're talking about the role of testosterone in success and in, the emotional processing of success and how it drives success. It starts between months 3 and 6 post-conception, and what's happening in the mother's diet and the mother's biochemistry that will impact the child years and years and years down the road. So it's a
Yep.
rabbit hole that you can get through, and sometimes it becomes overwhelming. I think the key is to pick a few things that are meaningful there and make small changes. You can go crazy trying to be the perfect parent, and that serves no benefit either. You're
No.
enough because you care.
And just imagine if you're the martial arts school in the community explaining to the parents and educating the parents on pre-infancy, prenatal stage. You know what I mean? Explaining to them about, hey, parents, did you know if you're currently pregnant, did you know that by doing this, and that, your child will be able to do this, and that based on proven studies? And people are going to look at you like, what the, what I mean? Like, what does Michael know about this? Back up your information. Okay.
It's
Back
funny
up your
because we see these, like, you go out on the tournament circuit and you see like the 3rd degree black belt who's like 4 years old, and he wants you to call him Shihan and whatever. And it's like everybody jokes, well, like, did you start training in the womb? Well,
Yeah.
if he's in a skills environment, then maybe, yeah, he did, because we know that we can affect the kids in the womb.
Hey, yeah. Hey, listen, I can share with you stories about Joseph and Marina, because we did have them start training in the womb. I mean, that can be a whole different conversation, but
Yeah.
I kid you not. And the reason I wanted to go deep into this is to have the ability to, let people know that yes, we started both of our kids training in the womb, and we got some sick, awful news about both of our kids while they were in the womb. But then you've seen both of the kids and how they are
Mhm.
today. So it's all in how you interpret the information, and the more educated that you become about, you know, the stages of development, the pies, what happened, when, where, if, and why, what can you do to turn things around? It does work.
So speaking of education, let's hop over to intellectual.
Yes.
So we've all seen the ads from our competitors, and half of you are still running them because I stalk all your pages, where we promise better grades in school and higher levels of intellectual success and all of this thing. So anecdotally, I'm sure we can all talk about the students who've gotten better grades and stuff. John and I were talking about a post that we saw in, I think it was the Century Group, asking about uh, certain intellectual conditions. And one of the things that came up was ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder. So this is an intellectual thing that we can actually help with if you know how in the martial arts environment. So basically what oppositional defiant disorder is, imagine if you took your crankiest 2-year-old and your crankiest teenager and put them in a test tube and shook them up, and out popped this child that no matter what you said, they instantly said no, opposed you, held their breath, temper tantrum, cursed you out, flipped you off, but then said they were sorry because they're cute afterwards. Right? So this is beyond just your typical behavioral issue. This is actually a neurological and chemical condition within the brain. And what happens is, not to get too deep into the science in the half an hour or so we have, it's the brain is predisposed for survival. And this is for all humans. So if you're given two choices, or you're given even a single choice, and it's enough to make you unsure, your default response is always going to be, half the time you're poisoning yourself. So evolutionarily speaking, we are predisposed to say no to new things. This is why most of your population is not as successful as that higher 10% of performers. In ODD, this is even stronger, to the point where it comes out as, because of the chemical imbalances as well, it can come out as an aggressive no, cursing, swearing, even physical aggression sometimes. So because we can understand what happens intellectually, and the way that stage of development plays into it, the way that different chemicals being imbalanced can play into it, we know that if we stimulate things like dopamine, and if you want to learn how to stimulate dopamine in your classes, just type in dopamine and child development, and articles after articles after articles will come up, or you can enroll for the next CPNS course. When we stimulate dopamine, when the right things happen. So when you ask that child with ODD to do something and they comply, or they're nice to somebody and we immediately compliment them on that, that reward stimulates dopamine. And dopamine, the feel-good chemical, then reinforces the neurological pathways that cause that behavior through a process called myelination. Basically, what's happening is the nerves that we use a lot get a bigger coating of myelin. The nerves that we don't use, that myelin wears away. And the more myelin, the faster those impulses move. So now when I'm presented with two choices, and one has thick myelin and one has skinny myelin, the one with the more myelin is going to assert itself more. So the more I can shrink down those negative impulses, and the more I can grow those positive impulses. And this takes time. This is not a one and done. This is over the course of a lifetime that this happens. I can, in a very real way, impact that child's intellectual development in a way that it's measurable, in a way that it's duplicatable. If another child comes in that also has ODD, I can use these same processes. I can teach my staff to do it. So it's, now I have 600 students with ODD. Ooh, that'd be a rough class.
No,
But now
let's
I
not
can,
hope that on anybody.
yeah. So that's my example for intellectual development and how we use it. John, if you could think of like one student in your school or your history of teaching that really had an intellectual shift or success in the history of your teaching, could you think of one and share a story with us? I know mine was
I mean, we 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 all have had to had our share of kids that walked in with ODD. So if you guys don't have one, I'll be shocked. You've got a blessed environment.
Yeah, and you might not even
um,
know it. A lot of
yeah,
times these kids come in and it's just like, oh, my kid is horrible and he's got bad behavior. And you look at the parent and you go, well, it's probably coming from your inside voice. But it
of
might be
course.
that the parent might have ODD as well. It does have some
Yeah.
genetic predispositions.
And just to give you guys an idea in terms of what Michael is talking about it, you can catch on to the parents ODD while you're doing the phone interview or while you're doing the presentation in the studio, um, prior to them signing up. So those are the things you want to watch out for, so that way you kind of would have an idea, um, of what the child is going to be like. And of course, if you're using the skills method about doing the pre-evaluation, that is gold. But to give you an idea, yes, of course we had. And for us, it was, um, a matter of knowing, like, why they're saying no. Why is it that you don't want to do it? Okay, Mel, you know what? I totally understand you don't want to do this. Can you tell me why? Well, I just don't want to. Okay, fine. You know what? Go ahead and have a seat. Hey, Johnny, can you show me how to do it? And we would flip it around real quick where Johnny's able to do it. Dude, fist bump. Bam. Remind me after class, Johnny, that we're gonna get you something out of the treasure box.
Man, that's like a double dopamine hit, man. That fist bump and then the anticipation of the treasure box.
Yep. So, again, I can fight the fight with the student and create ruckus, or I can redirect it real quick. Go on the prompting side of somebody who's doing really, really well in a class and be able to change the atmosphere of the class. Because if I fight with the student, I'm not going to be able to run class. Um, I'm going to lose all composure, right? But if I go to the other side and I prompt, I give that other kid the fist bump, that kid already knows they're going to get something out of the treasure box. What do you think Johnny's going to do? Like, oh, wait, 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 wait. Mr. John, can I do it now? Can I do it now? Guess what? I will have him get up and do it. And if he does it well, he'll also get something out of the treasure box. And people will be like, wait, he just acted out in class. Why are you doing that? Because I got him for that one moment to understand what work and reward system is. And
Yep.
that's what dopamine is. Dopamine is a reward, mechanism in the brain, right? It's that I want to feel good.
Yeah, and the more that happens and the more he comes out on the floor, he becomes part of for our CPNS students, he's becoming part of your in group,
Yep.
which stimulates oxytocin, which bonds him more closely to you and makes him feel better and happier about positive experiences. It's important for us as instructors to recognize that behavior in kids is communication. They're trying to communicate something, and most of the time they don't even know what.
Yes.
So if we look at a 45-minute class with a student and 44 minutes and 45 seconds of that class were just bloody murder, horrible, oh my God, why am I even in this career? How did I get here? I should have stayed in bed today. But that student gives you 15 seconds of the right thing. That 15 seconds is worth your entire day and every other bit. As long as you don't go, oh, finally, you just did the right thing. As long as you highlight that 15 seconds and let that child know this is what we want. You have to catch them being good. And it really it literally rewires their brain. So you talk
Hmm.
about like intellectual development. It's not just the mind. It very physically rewires their brain.
You know, you you just said something, and in the back of my head, all I can think of is how trainers train dogs to be absolutely amazing.
My I was an exchange student, so I had exchange students stay with us, and my Brazilian brother is a dog trainer. And the things that I see him do with those dogs is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I watch him and he does the same thing we do with kids, and it always makes me laugh because if a parent ever came to me and I said, I'm going to train your kid the same way that my brother trains his dogs, they would walk out in a hurry.
Do you know
But
how many
really, we're doing the
times?
same thing.
Do you know how many times I ask the parents while we're doing the walk-in conversation if they have animals at home, if they have pets at home? Because I want them to relate to something, right? Some parents got mad at me for the longest time when we first started with Skillz. And every single day of the week, when we're rewarding the kids, we're rewarding them with something. But one day out of the week, we reward them with Dum Dums. Dum Dum. It's a small piece of candy, barely has 25 calories in it, right? Um, but some of the parents get mad. And I'm like, well, do you have a dog at home? Do you have a special treat that you reward your dog with when they do something well? And the answer is always yes. You don't treat the dog with the same food that they eat. That's not a treat to them. That's just like,
Mhm.
wait a minute. Dogs are not stupid. Dogs are smarter than you and I put together.
So this is an awesome example, and let's take it a step farther because my dog does this. There are treats that you have in your house that your dog knows are in your house, and
Yes.
they know where they are, and your dog will prompt you to get that
Yes.
treat for them by going and sitting next to the cabinet, because every time you give them that treat, you bring them to the
It's in
cabinet.
that cabinet.
So now
Yes.
it's not that they are responding to the stimulus by sitting, they are prompting the stimulus by giving you the behavior that you actually wanted. And really, what are we doing with kids? We're trying to get them to a point of discipline. Discipline does not mean stand in this spot and stand straight and shut up and don't let me be annoyed by you. Discipline means teaching them to do the right things. And when they come to us and show us before we ever even ask for it that they're doing the right thing, it's dog training. Or
Yeah.
maybe we
And
say that the dog training is people training. Maybe that sounds better.
but if we as instructors and parents take the same approach and utilize it into our youngins and do the same thing with them, things would be great. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's we can connect with those kids in a negative way, or we can connect with them in a positive way. And if we simply utilize the parent skills approach, 8 different hacks, and realize what that child needs the most, then the ODD is no longer an issue. Let me rephrase that. Let's not say ODD. Then if a kid comes your way with so many different problems, whatever their problem is, that's no longer an issue.
Yeah, and they may still struggle with those things for the rest of their lives.
Sure.
Just like we don't say that somebody living with addiction is ever cured. They are always working on it. One day at a time is a popular catchphrase. It's that we're giving them tools so that every day when they live with it, they live with it a little easier.
Yep.
And that's what we're trying to do with kids.
So let me say this out loud. The minute you become the um, infamous person in the house, in that family,
Wait till
you
dad
know what I
gets
mean?
home.
Like, well, it's like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna tell Sifu Mike on you. The minute they do that, you are doing something that the parents are not doing. You know that you're able to touch that kid and influence that kid a lot more than their own parents. That's the moment you need to start educating those parents on the things that's happening at home that you can turn it around. Guys, we're martial art instructors. I get it. Trust me, I get it. We've all gotten the black belts on how to punch and how to kick. Okay, and in the past we were used as the threat, right? Because we were the authority figure that we were going to punish, right? Right now, if they're using you and you're aligned yourself well with the science and psychology of the stages of development and how kids learn and grow, now you're an influencer. You know what I mean? Now you can go and say, Mike, so thanks for the text and thanks for letting me know that, you guys mentioned my name a lot in the house. Can you give me an idea of what happened that day? And so I can have an understanding. So when I talk to, Mike Jr., I'm able to help him out. I'm not asking the question to help Michael Jr. out because that's the wrong approach.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jr. is 5 years old. Michael Jr. his brain hasn't developed to a point where they can make those sound decisions. I want to get Michael Sr.'s perspective of what happened pre, what happened post, So I'm able to say, well, Michael, when this happens next time, if you go A, B, C, D, I bet you're going to have a much better result. Would you try that out for me?
Yeah, it's a very
And I
subtle point
will.
for you.
Yeah. And I will talk to Michael today as well to figure out why he acted the way he acted. I didn't tell Michael what his approach was wrong. I did not, but we got to present ourselves on a much different level.
So now we're starting to stray more towards that emotional. So it's a really good segue. When you use me as the threat, right? And then class isn't for another 2 days. Now for 2 whole days, that child is in fear of what's going to happen. How many hours of horse stance am I going to have to do? Because I'm in trouble. That stimulates cortisol. Now, cortisol is a stress chemical. And when you stimulate cortisol, you're actually doing the opposite of what you're trying to do. When cortisol is stimulated, and then also adrenaline, because now you put a child into a position of fear, fight, or flight. So you've got cortisol going and you've got adrenaline going. Both of these have serious effects on memory and learning. They are no longer thinking about, well, how can I do this better next time? They are in survival.
Exactly.
And when this happens long term, if this is your parenting or teaching style every single class, you're actually putting kids into a state of trauma. And I'm not saying that as like a social justice warrior. Like, literally, the effects in the brain are the same as if they had gone to war. The same chemical secretions, the same parts of the brain fire, as if they're living with battle-driven PTSD. They end up with child PTSD. And what happens now is learning process stops. Not only that, because of the adrenaline is addictive. And adrenaline drives those strife-fueled interactions, those arguments at home. It drives the risk-taking behavior, wanting to drive faster, wanting to break the rules, wanting to lie about things and see what they can get away with. So by having this really aggressively, emotionally impactful parenting or teaching style, in the long term, I mean, in the short term, yeah, we're going to get the results. Stand still or I'm going to beat you. Well, yeah, the kid's going to stand still. But in the long term, we're actually creating the opposite of what we're trying to, to do. Let's see. All right. I do have to agree with this one. Complaining about horse stance sounds like someone needs more horse stance. Yeah. However, we have kids in our school who ask for horse stance. Not because they know I haven't used horse stance as a punishment for, 10, 15 years since I started following Melody. And now it's a competition for them. It is they get a little dopamine hit from the trying to reach different goals. And they actually get a testosterone boost because of the challenge of trying to win. So every now and then I'll walk out and slap a dollar bill on the wall with a piece of tape. First person to hit a minute of horse stance with a stick across their legs gets that $1. Man, you want to see the kids like scramble. Can we do more horse stance? Can we do more horse stance? So by making it a positive, by driving it with positive brain chemistry, I've actually turned it from something that people dread to something that people ask for. And so, John, again, I want your input on emotional stability here. But just one thing to think about is while we think about emotions, people tend to say, oh, emotions, frou-frou, suck it up, be a man.
Yeah,
your emotions, even though it's something you feel and they're not like tangible, the emotions that you feel stimulate chemical changes in your body, which change the way that your genes express themselves. They don't change the chemical composition of genes. Your genetics are set. But they will change how genes create different proteins. This is called epigenetics, the study of how different influences change genetic expression. So if you put a child in a traumatic experience, the way that their genes create different proteins, and proteins are then the building blocks of the human body, you are physically changing who they are at an organic level. Let's see. While John answers that, let's see what Mr. Graziano says. When they walk in to say, tell Mr. Graziano what you did at school, home, and at the playground, you've become a lifetime influencer. And when they are good things more than poor choices, yes, 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 yes. When you become the person that they come to celebrate, or because they have a challenge and want to know how to get through it. So maybe they're addressing the negative in a positive way. You've done your job. That's a really good one.
Yep, absolutely.
Um,
Earlier we're talking about, like, saying certain things. Um, sorry, guys. Um, Alex, sorry, we've got early release today, so of course all the schools are like calling in.
yeah,
Um, Earlier you were talking about, like, suck it up, derogatory terms, right? Um, I actually had to stop some of the adults in the studio that talk to teens that way. And it was very simple. Like, a lot of times the teens are not going to do what we want them to do. And I was like, hey, um, if you want to empower them, whatever is happening in your head, I need you to flip that around and make sure it's the positive way, because those words are not going to help them grow. It makes them feel bad, because what they're doing right now, they're not doing it like because they understand why they're doing what they're doing.
yeah. You're
It's just
telling them not
happening.
to do that, but you're not giving them any tools to actually get
Yep.
past it.
Yep. Yep.
I follow the guy from Cave of Adullam, Jason Wilson, and he's the guy that they based that push-up scene on that show. Was it? I don't remember the name of the show, but they based the push-up scene, and he's making a real impact in the lives of a lot of kids. And one of the videos that's viral about him is a young man that's trying to break a board, and he can't break the board with his left hand, and the kid just breaks down in tears, and the kid's trying so hard to suck up the tears, and in a very calm way, not adding to the fire, Master Wilson just turns around and says, "Don't try to stop. Let the tears out. This is part of who
Yeah.
you are as a human. And this is your body's response trying to let these emotions out. Embrace it. And when you're ready, we'll look at why you're being challenged and why you're stopping yourself." And the kid goes on to break the board. Now, to us, it's like, oh, he broke a board. But these are kids who very often don't have strong family bonds. They don't have a lot of hope socially or economically. So he's serving a tremendously influential role in these kids' lives. So something like breaking a board and learning that crying is part of being a man. In this particular case, it was a male, and to embrace it and then learn how to get past it, and then giving him the tools to do so. That was amazing. And I had a similar experience. When I was a kid, we didn't have a lot, and I used to play PAL football, and my coach, Stan Woodson, was amazing like that. I would get rocked sometimes because I played nose guard and half of the defensive line half the time. I would also play center on offense. So I was always the one taking the big hits. And there'd be times when I was just crying because I couldn't protect my quarterback, or I just got hurt, and I try to suck it up. And he was the same way. Like, so cry. When you cry, you feel better. And when you feel better, you're going to go out there and figure out what needs to be done. And we told the story the other day about how we ended up becoming the national champions 2 years in a row. So approaching these things from a point of acceptance is really important in the realm of emotion. You can't shut it down and then expect kids to deal with it. All right, how are we doing on time here? All right, we're right at the end. Let's switch over to the social aspects of training. So I think this is one that, some schools, having grown up in a traditional environment, some schools don't really like the social aspect. There's no talking on the floor. You don't talk in my school. You don't, interact and save that stuff for outside. And once you walk in, it's a temple. And like, I know this because it used to be me. Back in the days when I thought I was a Shaolin monk, everything had to be peaceful and harmonious and had to be perfect. So the social aspects of training and how we directly influence, our students. Now, social and emotional very often tie together, but not always. So think about, who's that child that struggled socially, and why did they struggle that way? So I can think of a child, while John types a little bit there. I'll start off this time, put myself on the spot. Um, I've had kids come in who were very like socially challenged. It wasn't that they wanted to be socially challenged. They weren't loners. They wanted to have friends. And it turns out that very often they were highly developed in another area. So they were very highly intellectually developed, or they were very highly physically developed. And it led to, well, I understand these things. Why doesn't everybody else? And I don't understand other people because they don't understand like I do. Or, wow, I'm really strong, and I'm going to, instead of leveraging what I need to know about intellectual and social, everybody's pushing me to just be strong. So I'm going to solve everything with my physical strength. This is where you get like certain aspects of bullying, in that there's a developmental imbalance there. So when we can actually help with the physical, intellectual, or emotional aspect, we can make it more easy. We can make it easier. We can make it easier for them to then engage in those social aspects. And for me, I always had a lot of social anxiety. So, I like helping these kids because it's one of my own challenges. So working with them on role-playing conversations. Half the time that they're getting beat up by the bully, it's because they can't verbalize themselves, or they shut down in the social interaction like that, or they say the wrong things and instigate the bully. Not to be a victim blamer, but that used to be me. I would always say the wrong things because I was smarter than half these people. And that would lead to my butt getting whooped. So, having this social influence is really important as well.
I'm glad you brought that up because we're recently dealing with a teenager who came and joined us about a month ago. Now, she's a figure skater, okay? She can get up in front of thousands of people and she can skate. And it doesn't bother her one bit. But we realize she's sort of an introvert, okay? Even from the sense of being in a close proximity with other people around her. And first couple of weeks when she first came in, pre-evaluation was no problem because it was one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
She had dialogues with us, no problem. Once she hopped in the group class, she did not want to punch. She did not want to kick, even though I like to relate, especially if they're good at something. I like to relate what they're good at and what they're going to do in martial arts. And she just stands back there in that corner because that's where she wants to stand to watch the class, and she doesn't want to do anything. Now, this is a 14-year-old. This is not like your typical 6, 7-year-old. And I simply pointed out to the parents, I was like, hey, listen, I'm patient as long as you guys are patient. Okay, we got to give her the space to have her process things her way so she's able to do the things that we want her to do in class. When people walked up to her and talked to her and just try to make her feel good, it was a one-word answer. It was just like, very different than most teens. Lo and behold, if it wasn't this week, when things started happening and she started doing kicks, punches, blocks, she started doing things because she's now emotionally and socially comfortable in her environment. Even though it's taken a month, there was no judgment. There was no pressure. I was like, hey, if you have any questions, let me know. Now, she will talk to me, no problem. But then again, I was the first person she connected with. Okay. The second person she connected with was Jennifer Randalls. But because I'm the one who's currently teaching the teens and adult class, she knows me. So if I tell her to do something, she'll do it secretly, right? But out in class, while we're all training together or doing a drill together or doing something, she doesn't want to. But it did happen. And I think, if I'm correct, most martial arts schools would be like, no, she's not ready for this. Let's have her come back in a few months or whatever. You don't know what's going to happen in a few months. She's still going to be the same if you understand her well enough.
Yeah, and I think you're right there. I mean, we see this in the other groups, because we're in a bunch of groups monitoring the challenges in the industry, and you see it a lot of times. Like, how am I going to work with this kid? They don't want to put anything in. Why am I wasting my time? And it's like, you're not wasting your time. You're not a babysitter.
Yeah.
You are probably the one anchor that child has. And it's not something, again, that's going to happen today. It might take time for them to become more socially comfortable. I'm going to be 46 years old, and there's still times when I don't feel socially comfortable, but I have the tools to at least fake it till I make it. And when I can start to feel a little more bonded, that oxytocin starts flowing and I feel a little more bonded to the people I'm talking to, find that common ground. Okay, now I'm down and going, it could take time.
And, again, knowing what we know today and understanding teaching with the brain and mind, first of all, you're not in their head and you're not in their brain. You don't know how they process things. You don't know how they, I guess, interpret and process is the same thing. But just give them time, give them the space, give them the room. Imagine if you're invited to a party, right? And this person is your friend. But when you go to the party, everybody else is not your friend. You have nobody to talk to at this party. You're the only person, and your friend is the other person. But your friend is the host. So they're busy like talking to everybody else. What do most people do? They've got the glass in their hand. They're standing in their corner. They're watching everybody until another family comes to you, or another person comes to you, talks to you, and then you're like, hey, it's about time somebody finds me.
Yeah.
Those teens or those kids are the same way. Maybe they need some time, but you're there to guide them. You're there to let the parents know what's happening. If you don't educate the parents on what's happening, the parents are going to take her leave and they're no longer going to be in your studio. Or you educate the parents on the stage of development and what's happening right then and there, and you relate to it because, Marina's the same way. Marina can get on stage, dance in front of thousands of people. But when it comes to one-on-one interaction, she's like, oh my God, like I have to speak out loud.
Yeah. So like my last visit was the first time that Marina actually, had a conversation with me a little bit,
Right.
Let's put this in perspective of martial arts school though. You get the younger students come in and they hide behind mommy's leg, maybe a five-year-old, let's say. And dad's complaint is always, my kid is so shy. I think that he's a wimp because he's always hugging on mommy and she coddles him and he just needs to get out there and do some stuff and talk to some people. And I'm being really stereotypical here, but we all do know people that have been like this, So what happens is that when you actually force the child out, when you drag them out from behind mommy and push them out onto the training floor, go learn something and interact with people, they're actually going to be less likely because they don't have a social safety net. They don't have a strong attachment style to their parents where they know that, well, if I go out there and talk to this kid and it doesn't go well, mommy or daddy is going to be there to let me know it's okay. It's counterintuitive, but the way to encourage kids to get out there more quickly is to encourage them not to. That's okay. Take your time, hang out with mommy. Mommy and I are going to talk for a little while. And when you're ready, come on out. And what happens is that we build a stronger social bond. We build a stronger attachment style, and strong attachment does not mean coddled, wimpy, or any of these other things that we say about kids. It means that they're taking their time, testing the waters, and making sure it's going to be okay. And it's up to us to show them it's going to be okay before we force them in. It's the difference between teaching a kid to swim by starting them, in ankle deep water and letting them paddle around and teaching them how to hold their breath and blow bubbles versus taking them out to the deep end and throwing them in and say, figure it out. One, they know they're safe and they're going to have the tools and they're going to experiment. The other one, they're going to never want to go by the water again. So it's counterintuitive, but this is how we start to leverage what we know as child development specialists to help these kids socially as well. So we're right here at about time. I hope you guys got something out of this. And the big thing that I want you to get is that when we talk about adding value in our program so that we can raise our rates or get more students or have the premier school in town, very often we look at, well, I'm going to add skills, or I'm going to have this new marketing piece, or I'm going to change what I call myself. And I'm not a martial arts school anymore. I'm a child development center, but you don't change anything. This is not how you add value. I mean, those things do add value, but it's not how you add true value. True value, not the hardware store, the concept, is in the smallest, most discrete unit of measurement in your school, which is how you impact each individual child in every single stage of development. When you can show the benefits directly, how you influence that child, how you help the parent also influence that child, and how you show that every single child is a unique individual that you are working with, not just another number in your class, not just, well, I need 5 more students to get skills, but hey, this student needs this. This is what I'm going to go dig into learning so I can better provide that. Now you're providing value and you are becoming the need that we all want to be in families' lives. So I hope you got that out of it as well.
Yep, totally agree.
All right. So any parting words, Mr. Salama?
Just go out there and do what you do best. But at the same time, make sure that you're very well educated on the stage of development, very well educated on parenting styles or parenting concepts. So parents don't look at you as just a martial art instructor. And I know we don't like to use the word just, but you don't want it to be where, well, I want my child to learn martial arts because of, this, and that. Well, first of all, they gave you the pains because I want them to learn martial arts because of A, B, C, D. Take the A, B, C, D, flip it around, and what you're going to do as a child development center, what are you going to use in your teaching concepts, what are you going to use when it comes to teaching with the brain and mind to let them see you as a really good influencer in their life, a pediatric ninja specialist, as we say.
So you mentioned influence before. Instead of trying to convince parents that martial arts is what they need, just influence them that you're the one that can solve their problems. They come to you because of confidence or social problems or emotional problems or laziness or physical issues. Stop saying that martial arts is going to fix it and just say, okay, let's find out why that is and how we can help it. Martial arts is probably the tool that can do that because that's the tool that I have. But I don't have to teach somebody how a roundhouse is going to help. I just have to teach them how I'm going to help. And that's where influence comes in. So most importantly, what I got out of what John just said is, it's going across the screen right now, never stop learning. You have to learn about the human condition because that's really what we're doing. We're influencing the human condition.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Next semester for the PNS course starts in January. This one was sold out almost instantly. There's a couple of those students on this today. If you want to find out more about what they're learning, you can ask them. They're already putting it into action. So you'll see, we'll probably open that up, a few weeks, month, something like that.
They can talk to us. Maybe we can open up a few slots for next month.
Maybe you might happen to know somebody that knows a thing or two.
We might happen to know somebody or someone that knows a thing or two. But yeah, and by the way, the spots is going to open up next month. Just to let you guys know, it's not like we're going to open up another 40 slots. Just it's going to be very few spots to fill in the gaps. But a lot of the students that we have right now, let me rephrase that. A lot of the school owners that we have right now, they're in it for the whole year already. So they purchased the entire year worth of the program. So yeah, that's
Yep. Keep an eye out for that if it's something you want, if you really want to take it to the next game. All right, everybody. Nothing left to do but go get it. Go make it happen.
Crush your